you're gonna break into. On you.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. Across the web, on Fight Now TV, and on radio stations around the world. It's the only daily boxing talk radio show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
So we're coming to you live from the Billy C. studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for Talking Boxing with Billy C. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you listen. Hope you're doing all right. Special shout-out to all my WMML listeners in Glens Falls. Glad you could join us. I love WMML, especially now with their brand new towers, reaching beyond the area that we used to. I don't know. Don't forget the show is being brought to you in part by Cat's Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service. If you're looking for a limo and you're located someplace in the United States, then you need to give my girl Cat a call, 202-351-7496. That's 202-351-7496. Cat's Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service is the official limousine service of this year's Billy C. Boxing Get-Together Hall of Fame weekend, which is scheduled November 16th, 17th, and 18th in South Glens Falls. Make your plans now. I know it seems like it's a far way away or a long way away. It's far away. It's a long time. But make your plans now because we got lots of stuff cooking for that weekend. Might as well make your plans now and then forget about it. Enjoy the rest of your summer. You can find out the latest and greatest about the Hall of Fame weekend by visiting our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click one of the Billy C. Boxing Hall of Fame banners. And that'll direct you to where the latest news is on the event. I suggest you get your tickets now. That's all I'm saying. Cat's Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service will be performing the limo duties back and forth from the venue to the hotels and all the other places we're going to be going. So give my girl Cat a call. Just remember, she's my girl. 202-351-7496. The show is also being brought to you in part by Campanaro and Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep me out of trouble. And I know that they've had to add some extra people on staff just to make sure I don't get in any more trouble. But they can help you. They got time to help you. 845-221-4099. That's 845-221-4099. Campanaro and Tomkovich. tell you what, tell him Billy C sent you, and tell him Billy C will pick up your consultation fee. Just tell him to send me the bill. It's that simple, man. 845-221-4099. And, of course, my friends over at the Halftime Bar and Grill, Route 9, South Glens Falls. For all you WMML listeners, if you haven't checked out the Halftime Bar and Grill yet, what are you waiting for, man? You know, the place has been completely renovated. Big screen TVs everywhere. You can watch your favorite sporting event. And on Friday nights, when ESPN puts on Friday Night Fights, I will be there. That's right. I'm going to be hanging out there talking about boxing. All you got to do is come up and talk boxing with me. Sit next to me and watch it on the big screen. And we talk boxing. I'll give you some free prizes, all of that. And I'll be kind enough to let you buy me a scotch. That's it, man. You know, and then the fun time is when I get there real early. And by the time the fights come on, I'm, doing the Pee Wee Herman dance on the bar, But Halftime Bar and Grill, always great people to hang out with. They always got drink specials. And, it's like they do some great stuff. Like last week, if you missed it, they decided to have a free fish fry. Everyone there for the whole weekend was getting free fish as much as they could eat. They had the back open. They had the grills open, all that stuff, man. The fryers open, I guess. I guess you gotta have the fryers open for a fish fry, as opposed to a fish grill. But Halftime Bar and Grill, give them a call ahead if you want to make a reservation for dinner. 518-792-4869, or just stop by and make sure you tell them Billy C sent you. 792-4869. Busy show scheduled for today. Scheduled to join us in a little bit. We got Alex Papali, who's going to be presenting this week's Blast from the Past, which is a former world champion and Boxing Hall of Famer Mickey Walker. What a character he was. And we'll be talking to Alex about that a little later on the show. We also are scheduled to have the infamous Joe Santaliquido join us. So we'll be looking forward to having him hang out with us as well. We got the poll question. The new poll question is up, but I'll give you the results from the last one. The last poll question. The question was, who would have won if we had these great fighters fighting each other? And this was a listener request. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. We're always talking about Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. now, but Julio Chavez Sr., his father, up against Manny Pacquiao. And surprisingly, Manny Pacquiao not only beat him, but beat him pretty bad. 63.6% of you voted for Manny. Only 36.4% voted for Chavez, Julio Cesar Chavez. Similar to the Floyd Mayweather Sugar Ray Robinson blowout. Some of these past greats. I'm just in a way. I'm in that case, Sugar Ray Robinson beat the snot out of Floyd, which I personally believe. But in this case, Manny Pacquiao beating Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., I'm not so sure, man. So I'm a little, listen, it shows me one thing, that the Manny Pacquiao fans vote for their fighter and back their fighter a little more than Floyd's do. And as far as Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., it just scares me that maybe too many young people don't even know who he is. I don't know, man, but he was one of the greatest fighters, really, in the history of the sport, and I'm not so sure Manny would have beaten him, but you never know. And this was just for fun. So congratulations to Manny Pacquiao beating Julio Cesar Chavez in a dream matchup. 63.6% of you voted for him. 36.4% say no. We got a new poll question up, and it's on the heels of what we've been talking about for the last few days, and I even have some more mailbags I'm going to be reading in a little bit. The poll question is we're talking about the Klitschko brothers and how dominating they are, and most of us, including myself, are finally giving them props. I mean, I just wasn't impressed with the Klitschkos for years. I just think they're boring. I mean, listen, no disrespect to them, and I know that they're the best, but I think they're boring. That doesn't take away from their talent. So there's a poll question, and it all started when someone asked in an email about Evander Holyfield fighting Klitschko, and we've been focusing on Evander and if Evander would have beat him, and a lot of you think Evander would have beat him, but we kind of made the poll question a little different. So go vote right now; it's up there. Who would have had no problems beating either Klitschko? Is the way this question is worded. Which one of these fighters would have had no problems beating either Klitschko? And your choices are Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano, Muhammad Ali, or Mike Tyson. And then there's a fifth choice that says all of those guys would have beat the snot out of either Klitschko. So go cast your vote right now, BillyCBoxing.com. You got to create a username. It takes you a second, and that's the only reason why you have to do that. And so you can't vote more than once. We want to have realistic votes here. We want to have honesty. And we know some of you might want to sway for your guy a little bit. But the bottom line is go up there, cast your vote right now, www.BillyCBoxing.com. I got some emails I want to read. But first I want to remind everybody, tomorrow we will be kicking off a revamped heavyweight spotlight. And now we got Tony Treem. Now, Tony Treem, in case you don't know who he is, this is a guy that's been around the boxing business for a half a century. Yeah, half a century. He's been around forever, all right? He's got, the way I look at it, you know how we're always talking about the lineage with a world heavyweight title? Well, he's got lineage to one of the best historians and one of the most well-known and most appreciated historians and memorabilia collectors ever to get involved in the sport, and that's Hank Kaplan. And my man Tony's got a lineage to him. As a matter of fact, Tony's pops and Hank were very good friends. Therefore, his mentor, so to speak, Tony's mentor was Hank Kaplan. So I mean, you can't get any better than that. So I'm looking forward to his debut. It's going to take place tomorrow. Heavyweight Spotlight. Make sure you tune in for that one and check it out. We'll see how Tony does. He's going to be presenting. The spotlight's going to be shining on young Stribling. He's going to tell us all about this guy. And the Heavyweight Spotlight, as you know, we've been doing this for a while, and there's really no criteria other than it's got to be a heavyweight. So I'm looking forward to this new segment with Tony, and we'll see how it fares. Another thing I wanted to mention just before we go to break is I want to remind everyone that on May 12th, we're scheduled to do a live broadcast on LDL TV, and we're going to be coming at you from Tampa, from the Tampa Convention Center, where they're going to attempt to redo. It's like a do-over. That's what I thought the show should have been called, Do-Over, where Chevelle Halbach is going to be fighting Terry Blair as the main event of this event. But it got a little better. They sweetened the pot a little bit. It's going to be for a world title. It's going to be for the IFBA women's welterweight title. And Chevelle Halbach and Terry Blair will be fighting for that title, and you'll be able to check it out right here on LDL TV for free. The way webcast is supposed to be, man. We'll be right back with some mailbags.
If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Roselli Enterprises. Roselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all. Dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flowboys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Roselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RoselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the IBO computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the #15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IBO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the #15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at IBOboxing.com.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you. I hate you.
The That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
As a young boy, all Billy C dreamed about was one day having his own catchphrase.
And we're back. And we're back.
One boy, one dream, one day, everyone will say.
And we're back. 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 And we're back.
Catchphrase coming soon to a theater near you.
And we're back. You are listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C radio show. You're watching us on LDL TV. They replay us every single night. Give a shout out to my man John. They also play us on the weekends. We've been doing some Billy C marathons, I guess. LDL TV is putting together a weekly version, I guess, and they run it. You know, all the best parts of the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. It takes place all week. You get to see the replays on Ustream through LDL TV, so make sure you check that one out. Hey, next week we got some great stuff going on, so stay tuned for that. I also want to try and get in today about Victor Chinian. You know, where does he go from now? Dax Khan wrote a piece, an opinionated piece on Victor Chinian. Maybe it's time to say it's over. Who knows? Maybe it's just time for him to go back down and wait. I don't know. But his last couple of performances haven't been that great, so we'll be chatting about that. Emails. I love this segment, man, and I love this guy. He's become like a regular on the show, Given Quality. Says to me, Billy, man, I was talking about Ortiz, not Baldemir, when he was saying yesterday, as a matter of fact, he said that Floyd Mayweather won his title legitimately, a legitimate champion at 147. He says Pacquiao has yet to fight, has yet to fight a legitimate 147. He said this yesterday. I thought he meant Floyd, you know, but he said when he said that he beat the champion at 147, he meant, Given Quality meant Ortiz. I thought he meant Carlos Baldemir. So, you know, I guess he's just talking recently. But I still would say the same thing, Given Quality, that when Pacquiao won that 147-pound that he still has, that was against Cotto, and that was a legitimate, welterweight. He says Pacquiao didn't win the right way at the official weight. Listen, man, the way the weights are is it's a limit. It's a weight limit. You know, so I'm just lost for words. 147 pounds, right, means that the welterweight limit is 147. What Given Quality is talking about here is that they put a weight limit of whatever it was, 143 was it, or 140, or I think it might have been 145, or whatever. So he doesn't like the fact that Manny Pacquiao put a weight limit on that was below the limit of a welterweight. I think that's what he's saying, because he says Pac didn't win it the right way at the official weight. As a challenger, he made all the demands and forced Cotto, who was the champion, to give up his belt plus his power. Cotto was coming off of wars with Judah and Clottey, where he feels Cotto really lost, and Margarito, where he was assaulted by loaded gloves. If that wasn't enough for Pac to have possible upper hand, he still had to drain Cotto, so he couldn't defend his title legitimately. Full credit for Pacquiao is unwarranted. The thing that kills me about all of this, Monday morning quarterback stuff about the weights and the drains and contracted weights and all that stuff, man, the bottom line is don't sign the contract, man. I mean, to me, it doesn't, I don't get where everybody's always complaining and they're making an excuse. It's ignorant, I think. I hate to say it, but I think it's ignorance. Because the bottom line is, if you don't like the deal, walk away. I mean, you can't complain. Oscar can't complain that he was drained. Miguel Cotto can't complain that he didn't get to fight at his right weight and all that stuff. The thing is that they go to a guy like Pacquiao, or they go to, in his case, Bob Arum, and they want to fight him. So in order for them to fight this guy, there has to be stipulations. Pacquiao camp says we want it to be a weight limit of this, which I do agree. If you're fighting for a welterweight title, the weight limit should be 147. Anywhere between 141 and 147 is a welterweight. So, as long as you fall within that range, fine. Now, they do have other rules in certain states where it can't be more than a 5-pound swing. So, if a guy came in and that would have been Team Pacquiao's defense, he said, well, we know we're not going to weigh more than 143. So, if Cotto comes in at 147, it should have worked. If Cotto came in at 141, if Pacquiao came in at 141, and Cotto came in at 147, 6-pound swing is too much for some states. So listen, it boils down to the fact: if you sign the contract, you fight the fight. If you don't like the contract, if you can't make the weight, and you're dying for the money, you're dying for the big payday, you're going to struggle with the weight, you're going to be drained, take less money, do something, But if the only way for you to take this fight is to fight at their terms, well, you're the one that signed the contract. So I'm sorry, I can't. It's hard for me to stick up for fighters that have the excuse after the fact that they were too drained, that it wasn't fair, that it was this, it was that. It was fair because you agreed to it. You put your name on the paper. So the bottom line is you signed the deal, man. You can't complain afterwards. It's like if you call heads or tails, and you call tails and it comes up heads. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I meant to say tails, or whatever the hell I said. If you're calling tails and it comes up heads, you said, oh, wait a minute, I know I called tails, but I meant to say heads. It's the same way. It's the same principle, right? Look, you sign the contract. The negotiation period is before the pen is put to paper. You go back and forth. I don't want this weight. I want this weight. Blah, blah, blah. Well, then you don't have to fight. Fine. Walk away. Get another fight. The problem is everybody relies on 2 promoters to pay their way. And then they complain about the concessions that they had to give up. But anyway, I can't deny with given quality that Ortiz is a better guy to say that Floyd Mayweather won his welterweight title from other than Carlos Baldemir. So, thanks, given quality. My day, I love getting emails from you. I do. My man Bobby says, we all love Marquez, but this card is not worth the pay-per-view, let's be honest. Which I was saying yesterday, man. I agree with you 100%. He says, but the May 5th card is looking to be an awesome night of fights. Should be worth every penny. I agree, man. I said yesterday I thought that the Cotto Mayweather card, and I say Cotto because he's the champion that Mayweather is trying to get his title, his junior middleweight title. Even though Mayweather has his own title, and even though Mayweather's stipulation is that his name is first all the time, I like to say Cotto Mayweather. I agree with you, man, Bobby. It's a great card, and I don't know about being worth every penny because I think that they're fleecing us, like everybody. The boxing fan is a niche fan, and we got to pay out the kazoo every time something happens, and anytime a good fight happens, and we've been trained. So here we are, all jumping for joy because we're going to be shelling out $50, and we may even get our money's worth, and we're happy about it, But I agree with you. I think it's a great card. I'm looking forward to that one in May. He says, I have no problem shelling out the money for it. He says, I agree, even though Mosley... and this is another thing. He says, I agree, even though Mosley's 150 years old. You're stealing my material, man. Come on, Bobby. He says, even though Mosley's 150 years old, he says... he is Alvarez's best opponent to date, which is not a good thing, but I hope at least Mosley shows up and makes the kid fight so we can see where he is in terms of skills. Nobody's pushed him yet. Thanks for the email, Bobby. I agree with you. I happen to like Saul Alvarez. I think he shows a lot of promise. As far as his skills go, the one thing I enjoy about watching, the one thing I enjoy when I watch Saul Alvarez is that he is technically sound, and although I'm very critical of these young fighters who, basically get an opportunity for a world title and then develop before our eyes. Andre Berto did it. We saw what happened to him. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is doing it now. He seems to have control over it because he's getting better and better. And Saul Alvarez is doing it. The thing is that of these young fighters, I think Saul Alvarez is the most technically sound. At least that's the way I see it. I see his stance, his textbook. I see he's got his hands up protecting himself. He uses his jab to set up his power shots. I mean, he's just he's a technically sound kid. I think he may become unraveled at some point, but I don't think it's going to be because of his boxing skill. I think it'll be outside, some stuff outside of the ring. Or just him starting to think, he's a little above himself or what have you. But as far as Shane Mosley fighting him, I haven't heard much on Shane. I haven't heard much from Team Mosley. Ever since we did the interview with him, and it seemed, if you go back and listen to that interview, it seems like during the interview, I had asked him a couple of questions about the promotional aspect of how he feels he was being treated and everything. And you can hear it during the interview that all of a sudden he kind of got pissed off at the way Golden Boy was treating him. And then from that day forward, we've seen kind of problems with Golden Boy Promotions and Sugar Shane Mosley. We've seen Mosley fight since then. But who knows what's going on? I haven't heard anything. I don't see him in the press. I don't see interviews with him. I don't see much about this fight coming up, even though it's a month away. You would think we would be getting something on Sugar Shane Mosley. We'd love to have him back on. As a matter of fact, I tried to reach out to have him come on the show, and he's working with different people, so I'm having a hard time getting a hold of him. But anyway, I do believe, and I do agree with Bobby, that it is going to be a good test for Saul Alvarez. Hey, listen, I got to take a break. Before I do, I got to give a shout-out to my man Mac and all my girlfriends that are in his office. I just can't wait. I'm waiting. I know one of them are going to be sending me a ticket. I'm going to be spending some time in the Philippines with all the beautiful women, and I just can't wait. Just can't wait, and I got to thank my man Mac for all of that. So I want to give a shout-out to him and all the ladies surrounding him. We'll be right back.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
Broadcasting in all corners of the globe, on the web and radio.
He would scoff at a stretcher, that man, I would
think. You're listening to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From upstate New York in the good old US of A.
Boxing is here to stay because we are here to stay.
The best 2 hours of boxing talk on the airwaves.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And tell him Billy C sent ya.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C, the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C, damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. My fellow Americans, good evening. Welcome back to Talking Boxing with Billy C. It's great to be here discussing the sweet science with everybody. I love boxing. I love talking boxing. It's what I do.
Bill.
Wait, what?
Bill.
What? Why are you interrupting me? What?
Wrong.
What's
wrong,
the problem?
Billy
What?
C.
I did not have...
We're gonna have to ask you.
Wrong speech.
Billy,
What do you mean wrong, Billy C? What's going on here? Fine, I'll go. I just wanted to talk some boxing on TPSradio.net. That's all I wanted to do. I don't need your damn show. I'll get my own talking wrestling with the other Billy C. Yeah, that sounds good. I've always been a Hulkamaniac anyway.
Broadcasting live, brother. Welcome back to Talking Boxing with Billy C. on the mighty TPSradio.net, brother. What you gonna do, brother?
And we're back. You are listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C radio show. And you're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. I want to welcome the Fight Now audience just joining us like they do every day, Monday through Friday, from 6 to 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you don't have the Fight Now channel on your sports channel lineup, then you need to call your local television provider and tell them that you want it. And this is a great time to do it, because this weekend we got Super Saturday going on Fight Now. You ask, what's Super Saturday? Well, it's a day of fights, man. It's we start off with the live broadcast of Tyson Fury and Marty Rogan coming from Ireland, and then right after that, that's at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Then right after that, we're going to see the undercard of the HBO pay-per-view event, which is starring Juan Manuel Marquez and Bam Bam Rios and Mike Alvarado and No Mercy Gesto. So we got a good fights that you can see right here on Fight Now. So if you've been waiting and waiting and waiting to pick up the phone and call your TV provider, now's the time, because you definitely want Fight Now now. And for all the information, check out their website, www.fightnow.com. We're reading some emails, get everybody caught up that's joining us from Fight Now right now. We're reading some emails, and we're talking about that card, as a matter of fact. And we're talking a little bit about, we were talking about the next one that's coming up, the next big one that's coming up in May. We're talking about the undercard, but right now I'm going through some emails, and we got a new poll question up. So anybody that was on Fight Now that was involved with the Manny Pacquiao against Julio Cesar Chavez, it was requested by a listener. As a matter of fact, my man Mac, who's in the chat room right now, requested it. It's over. The last bell sounded, the last count, and Manny Pacquiao overwhelmingly beat Julio Cesar Chavez. 63.6% of you voted for Manny Pacquiao to beat Julio Cesar Chavez. 36.4%. So that question's over, but there's a new one up, and it's based on what we've been talking about this week, or at least what a lot of the topic of the conversation has been. Evander Holyfield, we were talking about. A lot of people felt that he could beat Klitschko. I got some emails I'm going to be talking about. So we kind of put a little twist on that, assuming that the Klitschkos are the best heavyweights in the world today, which I think we all agree on, at least at this point in time. Of these four guys, Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano, Muhammad Ali, and Mike Tyson, which one of them would have easily beat either Klitschko without a problem? No problem. I mean, hands down. I mean, you can't even think twice. Or, here's the fifth choice, all of them would have beat Klitschko. Go cast your vote right now, www.billycboxing.com. We'll give you the results next week. We continuing with the emails. I got my man Hawker Mustang. He's got a couple of comments. He says, first of all, you know, and I'm going to change the wording, of course. I'm going to change the wording, of course, because I don't want to offend anyone. And first of all, you know, I probably would say every word that's in this email if I were not on the air, okay? But he says it's crazy the way the Floyd Mayweather fans always try to blame either Manny or Bob Arum for all of Floyd's ducking and dodging. Most of Floyd Mayweather fans will ride. Let me remove one of the other words that he had in there. Ride Floyd to the end, no matter what. Floyd should start a cult for these Floyd Mayweather fans. He says a few months ago, when the Floyd Mayweather fans thought Pacquiao was going to fight Cotto again, they were all saying that he was cherry-picking his opponent. That was when Pacquiao was going to fight Cotto. Now they say Floyd is fighting Cotto, and it's a great fight, and Cotto's the best out there for Floyd, and he does a LMAO, so he laughs about that. So he just wanted to get that out of the way, that he thinks it's funny that a lot of the Floyd fans, were saying that, Miguel Cotto was a cherry-picked opponent when it was time to fight Manny, but when he went to fight Floyd, now it's a great fight. Listen, I've been saying all along I think it's a good fight. And, the only reason why I didn't want to see him fight Pacquiao is because Pacquiao already beat him. And we'll see what happens. A lot of people think that Cotto's a different fighter, that fought Manny Pacquiao. And, what does Floyd have to do to make the Pacquiao fans say that Floyd, looked good against Cotto? I mean, how do you beat up Cotto more than Pacquiao did? I mean, Floyd, the only thing Floyd can do in that fight is worry about Floyd, and that's exactly what Floyd's going to do. Floyd's going to win the fight, or, his plan is to win the fight whatever way he can. So, that's that. I mean, it is what it is. Hawker says, I think Evander was a great fighter. He had a lot of heart. I think Evander in his prime would be a legit challenger to anyone. However, I would have to favor either prime Klitschko brother to beat him, but Evander Holyfield will do his best to make it a war as he did with Lewis and Bo. The Klitschko brothers are some big, strong dudes with legitimate skills. The Klitschko brother jab is not easy to get past, and both Klitschko brothers can move well. Vitaly has the better chin, but Vlad has the better feet. My point about everything yesterday, specifically with Evander, is that, the one advantage that Evander would have going against Klitschko brother is that Evander has no fear. Evander has no fear, so he would be going all out every time. The key would be to get past that jab. That's the key. I mean, we all know that, right? But that's the key, to get past the jab and then get in there. And like we said yesterday, fighters that rush and throw punches and get in the face of the Klitschkos, they don't like that. If you let them dictate the pace of the fight and you let them get their jabs off, and then you find if you do that, if you answer yes to those questions, then you're going to find yourself waiting to get hit and actually trying to time getting hit. And if you watch a lot of the footage and of the replays of fighters that go in like gangbusters, that's exactly what happens. Midway through the fight, you can almost sense that the opponent is waiting. I mean, Tomaz Adamek was doing that. As gutty as a performance as it was, he was just anticipating the punch. I mean, they all were. So I do believe that the Klitschkos could have been beaten, and I'm interested to see how this latest poll turns out. The jab is hard. The Klitschko jab is hard to get under. So, but Evander had a knack for fighting the bigger guys, as you said. I think he's got a good. That's the only reason why we didn't include him on the poll question, because we've talked so much about it. And finally, Hawker Mustang says, thumbs up, Billy. Today's big guys can fight much better than the big stumble bums from the past. And yes, I think if the Klitschko brothers were 6'1", 210 pounds, they wouldn't be that special. But with the skill they have at 6 foot plus, 6'6" plus, and over 240, they are great. thanks for the email, Hawk. And the thing is that that's my whole point about them specifically, or any heavyweight for that matter, being in the heavyweight, being in the pound-for-pound rankings. My man Max says Clubber Lang could have beat the Klitschkos. I didn't have much respect for the Klitschkos for a while. I thought they were being overrated and everything. But I don't know. I've changed my stance. I think what Hawk says here at the end is the key. These guys have learned how to fight at that size, and I think that because of their size, that is a huge advantage, and that's why they're as good as they are. I've always said that if you take Klitschko, and let's take Vlad for an example, if you take Vladimir Klitschko and you put him in as a middleweight, now all of a sudden he's got to be at a weight limit of 160 pounds. How does he fare? Will he have the size advantage? No. He may have a height advantage, but he won't have the size advantage because his maximum weight will be 160. So now does he have the same advantage over other 160-pounders? That's my point about heavyweights, specifically those guys, being in pound-for-pound rankings. As a heavyweight, nobody's going to beat him right now. But how do you put a guy that uses a jab in his size as a pound-for-pound rated fighter when you take that size away? What's left? You could look at a Floyd Mayweather Jr. and say, well, wow, could you imagine if Floyd Mayweather Jr. possessed all his skill right now, and none of his skill? Nobody's ever going to tell you that Floyd Mayweather is so good because he's bigger than his opponents. They may say that, against a specific opponent, but not overall. He's not overall bigger than everybody he fights. So what gets him the wins is his skill level. So could you imagine if Floyd Mayweather was a heavyweight, and he was a guy that weighed 230 pounds, 240 pounds, and still possessed the same speed, the same defensive power, the same brains, all those things? We may end up with Muhammad Ali, a big version of Muhammad Ali, So yeah, he would be, that's why you say a pound for pound. That's why Floyd Mayweather's up there. The same thing with Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao, same skill set, same style, same mindset, all of that stuff. Now he's 6'5", 240 pounds. What do you think you got? You got a human killing machine, and that's my point. When you take a guy like Vladimir Klitschko and you put him down as a welterweight or a lightweight, you have to assume that his size advantage goes away. Now you're left with his skill set, and I don't think that their skill set is that great. Honestly, I don't. I think that they've learned how to utilize their size, and that's what makes them great. Master Blaster, my favorite name for an email, says, I think the Klitschkos are very good fighters, particularly Vitali, but style makes fights, as you know. However, I think they are too jab-dependent. They have been fortunate not to come up against a fighter with a style that neutralizes the jab. For instance, a Bob and Weaver head movement with foot speed can punch on the move. Tyson, Jack Dempsey, etc. A croucher inside fighter like Holyfield or an ambush fighter like a young Ali would stay outside the range of the jab but come in on strikes with speed. Darting in and out, I think many fighters have tried to dart in and out of the Klitschkos, and it doesn't work. I do agree that the jab is dependent, but, when it comes to boxing, Master Blast, one of the first things you learn is to use your jab to set up everything. So to say that they're too dependent on the jab would kind of be, it's kind of foolish because you want them to be dependent on the jab. The jab is the first step of setting up everything else. The fighters that don't have a jab, the first thing that a new trainer will say is, we got to get this kid to work his jab more. So, I don't know if I would use that as a negative, but I do understand your point. You're looking for an aggressive fighter to come after them and capitalize on what we all perceive as a possible weakness with him, with those guys. But he also says every time they extend themselves in an attempt to land the jab, this is continuing his other. I'm sorry. He says when Ali, who stays outside the range of the jab but comes in and strikes with speed every time they extend themselves in an attempt to land that jab. Okay, so your point is you think that while they're throwing their jab, that a guy with some speed, some darting speed, can come in and counter that jab quickly and get out of harm's way. I think people do try that. I think they try it, but you're forgetting about one thing. And let's take again. We're talking about Vlad. Vlad's got that right hand cocked, ready to go, man, and he's learned to throw it sparingly. He throws it when he knows he's going to land it. And if you're trying to come in and overshoot that jab, you got a right hand waiting right there. The one thing that you got to give the credit to both Klitschko's is they're extremely athletic. They're athletic fighters. So in addition to being big guys, they're very athletic. So, some of these, like you said, or another listener said that, we don't have these big guys. They're not just stumble bums anymore. They're athletes. So it's a little tougher to get around them. You also said, however, you have to give Klitschko's their respect because they can only fight the people in their era, and they've done that. Although they've ducked Valiev, I don't know about that. Pac has not fought a reigning welterweight champion at the 147 limit for 3 years in the division. Floyd has fought a reigning welterweight champ in 2 of his last 3 fights. My favorite Mad Max is the first one as well, the best one in my opinion. My man Alex had to straighten me out about the Mad Max. Master Blaster is actually, this is your handle, Master Blaster. That's the third one. That was Beyond Thunderdome with Tina Turner. That's where the Master Blaster was in. The first one was the older one that they didn't even use. Alex gave me this whole thing. He said, they didn't even use the his voice. They didn't like his accent. The first one was good. I liked all 3. Wasn't there 3? Wasn't Beyond Thunderdome the third one? The first one was water, right? They were fighting for water or something. I forget. But as far as Manny Pacquiao, I'm not going to criticize him. Listen, Manny Pacquiao, he's done nothing but win lately. He's done nothing but excite. He's done nothing but sell tickets. I'm not going to criticize his choice of opposition, and just like I'm not going to criticize Floyd's choice of opposition lately. I do think Floyd, leading up to these last 2 fights, have clearly been handpicking opponents. But so does every other fighter. We can argue that point with every other fighter in boxing today. I do agree with Master Blaster about the Klitschko's. There's no question about the fact that they fought everybody in their era. One last email I got is from my main man Alex. No, my other main man Alex. The other Alex T, says, and this is a pretty interesting email that I wanted to read to everyone. This is concerning Julio Cesar Chavez. He says, history's funny. Do people really know how good this guy was? Julio Cesar Chavez is a guy who I'm afraid is remembered for the last few years of his career when he got smacked around by Oscar De La Hoya and beat up a whole bunch of ham and eggers trying to get his 100th win. Which, I'm going to stop right there. I agree with Alex about this, and I sent him an email, and I was like, man, I agree with you 100%. I think in all of sports, unfortunately, we're always remembered by our last performances. Same thing in basketball. People could remember Michael Jordan in those last couple of years that he played. He was a shell of himself. Football's the same way, baseball's the same way, and boxing's no different. The only difference with boxing is it's so much more noticeable because it's only you. In other sports, you got a team around you. Maybe the ball isn't thrown perfectly anymore and you can't catch it great. You'd make that catch 100 times and all of a sudden you don't anymore. Or that pitch comes in and you hit that one out of the park every time before, and now you can't make connection with it, but because of the age. But in boxing, when those skills diminish, you're getting knocked out. You're missing the punch. It's just more noticeable. He says, make no mistake about it. Though when this guy was in his prime, he was as good as it gets. I view his career in 2 halves, basically before Pernell Whitaker and after Pernell Whitaker. Before he fought Sweet Pea, he was the best fighter in boxing. His resume against championship fighters is amazing. He fought everyone there was to fight, and he didn't just beat guys, he ruined their careers. Very underrated defensively, too. One of those guys who would parry and block shots with his gloves on the inside, and if you weren't paying attention, you could miss a lot of the what's the word? I can't even read it. Subtleties is what he's trying to say. What I'm trying to say. I'm trying to read it. He was doing, and who had a better chin? Nobody. He says, we're talking all time here. Remember when Roger Mayweather landed his go-home punch on Chavez and buckled his knees? Any other fighter would have been counted out right there and then. Chavez brushed it off and resumed the attack and made Mayweather quit. Juan Laporte, Jose Luis Chavez, they brushed it off and resumed the attack, and then he made Mayweather quit. Oh, I'm sorry. He made Mayweather quit. Juan Laporte, Jose Remains, Rocky Lockridge, Ruben Castillo, Edwin Rosario, Meldrick Taylor, Roger Mayweather, Greg Haugen, Sammy Fuentes. These are all guys he destroyed. These were not hand-picked opponents. These were fighters who earned their shots at the old-fashioned way. Earned their shots at the title the old-fashioned way. And Julio Cesar Chavez knocked them down the ladder one by one. You know, he makes a great point here. You know, all those fighters that he's mentioning were on their way up and getting their shots. You know, they fought who they had to fight to get to Chavez, and Chavez would gladly take them all on and beat them all. He goes on to say, I thought Meldrick Taylor was robbed against Chavez until I found out how much damage Chavez had done to Taylor. We all thought Taylor was robbed because of he seemed to be in control of that fight up until the end. He says Taylor had a broken eye socket and had swallowed 2 pints of his own blood. He had been drinking his own blood because he was afraid the ref would stop it if he had been spewing blood all night. If Chavez had landed one more shot on Taylor, he could have killed him, and for that reason alone, I have no problem with the stoppage. He goes on to say, I guess what confuses me about your poll result is the logic that the voters are using to have Manny winning in a landslide. Manny has had exactly one fight within the junior welterweight limit of 135 to 40 pounds, which is the Hatton fight. For my money, 140 pounds is where these two would have met in a hypothetical matchup. Chavez won 18 WBC junior welterweight title fights alone. Based on that alone, I would pick Julio Cesar Chavez all day. If you want to make the matchup at a lower weight class where both guys were also successful, I say Chavez destroys Manny anyway. Manny was a one-handed fighter at featherweight and lightweight. Chavez would eat a guy like that alive. Go ask Roger Mayweather. Great email. Great email from Alex T. And, like I said to him, I can't argue with any of it. You know, Julio Cesar Chavez, great fighter, all-time great, against Manny Pacquiao. You know, Manny Pacquiao is a different style fighter. You know, that's what happens. What happens in sports, man. It's not boxing. It's not just boxing. It's every sport. You know, listen, go read. I tell everybody that I talk to, you want to read a good book. Oh, it's not even a book. It's a short story. I think it's 20 pages. And I'll even send it to you. I have it if you want it. Jack London, famous writer, okay? He loved boxing, big-time boxing fan. And as a matter of fact, he was one of the guys that printed in a newspaper some racial comments, which were, I guess you were allowed to print them back then, calling on James Jeffries to fight my man Jack Johnson at the time to save the white race. This was the stuff about this guy. But aside from his outlandish racial beliefs, the guy was regarded as one of our literary giants in terms of writing. And he wrote a short story on boxing. It's called A Piece of Steak. You guys have heard me talk about it a lot. It was an essay. It's considered an essay, short story, whatever. It's about 14 pages long, maybe 12 pages. It really defines boxing, the way it's written. It's a story about a guy who was an old champion, and it's basically the whole nutshell is youth versus age versus youth. And youth will always prevail. And the moral of the story is youth will always prevail. And my point with that story and where I connect it with boxing all the time is exactly what we're talking about. Julio Cesar Chavez was great during his era. I got to see it. I watched it all the time. And if you would have asked me then if I thought that I was watching a guy that I would consider an all-time great today, I probably would have said no. I probably would have said he's just a normal fighter like all the other guys I've been watching in the 80s. And today, it's known as the last great era. So it's pretty interesting, and we're going to get this guy's comments right now. My man Alex Papali joins us. What's up, my man?
Good morning, Billy C. How you doing?
No, not too bad. I don't know if you've been listening at all, but I just finished up with a great email from the other Alex. Ironically, you call now. This guy likes to call himself the other Alex, like there's only two Alexes that listen to us. But and he's actually from New England too. Alex T, my man Alex T, and he's upset about our recent poll, which ended yesterday, and we had a dream matchup: Manny Pacquiao against Julio Cesar Chavez, and Manny Pacquiao beat the snot out of him based on the voters. 63.6% voted for Manny, and only 36.4% voted for Julio. And Alex T was just writing me a record and an email, and he's going over his record and saying how dominating he was and everything else. And that the bottom line is he fears that people are only remembering the end of his career. And my connection with this was I sprinkled in my Jack London pizza steak story, and I'm thinking maybe the youth issue. People are forgetting, the sports stars from 10, 20 years ago. Everybody's looking at today's fighters, and that's maybe why Manny Pacquiao beat him in our poll. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, we have the people that are voting are, the young of today who, it's not uncommon to be sort of short-sighted when, especially you have a big star like Manny Pacquiao, who certainly is impressive as hell, every time he gets in the ring, well, for the most part. And he, it's hard not to imagine him, just laying waste to the greats of the past. But I think Alex T has a very good point. I think that, one, it would depend on what weight they met at. And, of course, we're talking prime Julio Cesar Chavez and a prime Manny Pacquiao. I think the best Manny we've seen is probably, you kind of look at him differently. Manny at featherweight was more of a destroyer than he is at welterweight and even, briefly junior middle. At welterweight and junior middleweight, he fights kind of the way I like the way Nazim Richardson compared him to an Aaron Pryor. A lot of speed, a lot of pressure, a lot of punches. But at featherweight, he was much more destructive and would slug. And then the same goes for Julio Cesar Chavez. As a welterweight, he was a different fighter than he was as a lightweight. So it does matter where they meet. I think the advantage Pacquiao has is, one, his speed is incredible, and Chavez didn't like the real speedy guys. And the other thing, he's a southpaw. So those two things, I think, do bode well for Pacquiao in terms of in a fantasy matchup. But I think I would kind of agree with Alex T. If it's at a 140, say they fought at 140, I could see Chavez pressuring him, especially if something weird happened, and it's very possible that a headbutt or something because of the rough style of Chavez. I could see Chavez grinding one out and really pressuring him the way he did to Edwin Rosario. You want to see just vintage Chavez. Watch what he did to Edwin Rosario. Manny Pacquiao would have to use every amount of movement and amount of, those lightning bolt combinations to prevent himself from getting caught in the corners and along the ropes. And because once you're there, you're in trouble against that kind of. Chavez was, people, especially young of today, don't realize what a force of nature he was. You just couldn't stop him. Look at Melvin Taylor.
Well, I agree with you, and you just said something that I thought would have been key, and I said it on yesterday's show. Julio Cesar Chavez had a knack. He was able to get you out of your game and get you into his game, and his game was exactly what you just said. He wanted to get you against those ropes, get you into a corner, so he can unleash his own attack. He was never claimed to be a guy with blazing hand speed, or never claimed to be a guy that was had great footwork or anything like that. But he was a guy that was methodical. He worked the body. He broke you down, and he ended up having you do what he wanted you to do. And Meldrick Taylor is a good example of that. A lot of people think that Taylor was robbed in that fight, but I mean, the fight was never over. When you fought a fight against Chavez, from his first fight all the way up to his last, even when he was, way past his prime, the fight was never over till the final bell sounded. And I think that that's what we are missing today. I've never seen so many fighters, stop fighting in the corner than what's happening today, And I just don't think that we have that heart anymore that we used to. And I just think it's a shame that the last great era is the 80s, and I guess I blame myself for taking it for granted during the time. I never thought that we would be looking back at the 80s as being such a great time in the sport,
Yeah, it sure was. And to think that, Hagler Leonard was, more than a generation ago, just this past weekend, it was 25 years officially. It is hard to believe. But, Chavez, we're talking a little bit later than, maybe 5 years later than, because I think Chavez-Taylor was 91. But we're still talking, more than 20 years, which, and I think that's why the poll went the way it did, is the people that are voting are just a lot younger. But, yeah, I think that, and if you think about it, Albert Morales, in their first fight, used some of the tactics that I think you would have seen from Chavez. And remember, that was what was so amazing about the fight with Meldrick Taylor, was that even though Taylor was way ahead in rounds, every single round, Chavez would get in close and do all the mean body punching in close, little short chopping uppercuts. I mean, Manny Pacquiao, we've never seen him. He doesn't stay in the pocket and trade like that, like Taylor did. I mean, Taylor, unfortunately, that was part of his downfall, was that he had too much of that Philadelphia heart, where he would stand and slug. Manny wouldn't, so that would make the fight very interesting. But remember, the thing that was amazing about Chavez was he would just take so much out of a guy when you wouldn't even see it necessarily in terms of points scored. But look at the Chavez-Taylor fight. As you get on in those rounds, suddenly you're noticing the incredible amount of damage to Taylor's face, and you're like, well, wait a minute, when is this even happening? It was subtle, because it's happening in close, and he's doing it with mean, short, hard punches, and that was one of the things about that fight, is that there was just so much contact that Taylor got the worst of it.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Alex, hang tight. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to do the blast from the past, all right?
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. now has official merchandise available on TalkinBoxing.com. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and mugs. And yes, even undergarments. Talkin' Boxing apparel is the perfect gift for the boxing fan in your life. Log on to www.talkinboxing.com. That's TalkinBoxing.com and place your order today.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out their ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
It's Joe Louis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh?
What?
We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
As Billy C. sits here in the multi-million-dollar Talkin' Boxing Studios, sipping a fine wine before you're even out of bed, you should be thinking, damn, I wish I had a mustache like his. It's the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. show. He's Billy C., and you're not. Sucks to be you.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C. first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
And we're back. You are listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C. radio show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel, and we got a busy week for you this weekend. Or let me rephrase that. We got a busy weekend for you this weekend. Yeah. On Fight Now. It's called Super Saturday. We're going to be broadcasting first the Tyson Fury and Martin Rogan fight, coming to you live from Ireland. And following that, we're going to get the undercard of HBO's pay-per-view event, the Juan Manuel Marquez fight, along with Bam Bam Rios. The undercard will all be right here on Fight Now, so it's time for you to call your local television provider and tell them that you want the Fight Now channel added to your sports channel lineup. It's that simple. But right now we're doing the
Blast from the past. We shine the spotlight again on fighters from years past.
Top-ranking Joe Louis is the leading contender.
Joe Frazier with a left hook. Good right hand thrown by Foreman that time. Look at that left hook. That belt that goes to Ray Mancini.
It's Blast from the Past on Talkin' Boxing.
And this week's Blast from the Past is sponsored by the International Boxing Organization, where their computerized ranking system is second to none. Check it out right now at their website, www.iboboxing.com. And this week, we're going to put the blast on former world champion and Boxing Hall of Famer Mickey Walker. And joining us, like he does every week, with his Blast from the Past is my man Alex Papali. Mickey Walker, what a fighter he was, huh?
Yeah, this guy was quite a great, and this was somebody who definitely defines the concept of pound for pound, because he moved up and down in weight.
Not only that, but he moved way up. Is he the only guy that ever really was a ranked fighter that was legitimately a welterweight that moved up to be a ranked fighter in the heavyweight ranks?
You know, I don't know if he's the only one, but I got to think that he's one of the very few. I don't think he did it quite simultaneously, but yeah, he went from welterweight. He fought welterweights, middleweights, light heavies, and heavies, and you don't hear that happening too often. I mean, I guess Tommy Hearns maybe. I mean, he did go all the way up to cruiserweight, but granted, it was more of a title belt, not so much the undisputed championship. Back then, in Mickey Walker's days, we're talking about 8 weight classes. It's a lot harder to climb up and down than they do today.
Exactly, and when you were in the rankings, when you were ranked in the world, if you're number 8 in the world, I mean, look at the difference. There was only one ranking. There was only one number 8 ranked guy in the world. I mean, today we could have, 20 number 8 guys ranked. I mean, theoretically, we only recognize maybe 5, but there theoretically could be 20 or 50. Who knows how many number 8 ranked guys? But
right, and when you think about it, I mean, he has, was competitive with top heavyweights like Max Schmeling and Jack Sharkey, who today that would be, Max Schmeling, I think, was the champion when he fought him. Jack Sharkey was a former champ. So, today this would be like fighting top 10 contenders or top 5 contenders and then moving back down to, light heavyweight and middleweight. It's unheard of today.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Well, tell us about this guy, man. He was born pretty much at the turn of the last century, right?
Yeah, it's funny. He was actually born about 2 weeks before my great-grandmother. He was born July 13th, 1901, Mickey Walker, and his real name was actually Edward Patrick Walker, and he was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And when he turned pro, he was actually 5'6", and during his first year as a pro, the papers made a big deal about how he did seem to get taller, and by the time he stopped growing, he was
but he was a teenager.
5'7".
Yeah, but he was like a kid when he turned pro. He was a teenager,
yeah,
right?
He was still. His bones hadn't completely finished doing their thing yet.
Right. So what are they so shocked? That's right. You had to be a grandmother by the time you were 25 back then, right?
But yeah, they called him a sawed-off, referring to the height especially, they called him a sawed-off marvel of the modern ring. He was small in stature, but definitely not in ferocity. Barry McGuigan referred to him, there's a video of several guys discussing the pound-for-pound, all-time rankings, and Barry McGuigan talks about Mickey Walker a little, and he said how he was carved in marble. He was muscular, especially for the day, and he was like chunkily built. He would fight his way inside using a weaving two-handed style, similar to Stanley Ketchel and Jack Dempsey. Walker upheld the creed of the Fighting Irish in sparkling fashion. So we're talking about, the era when a lot of the great immigrant fighters here in America were making themselves known. Guys like, Benny Leonard and the different races that had come here. Jews and the Irish, and Walker was one of the Irish. They called him the toy bulldog, and that was, he was small, and he charged right in there and, like a little bulldog, get a hold of you and just wouldn't stop. He could force his way into close range with his chin tucked. That's something that a lot of guys don't do today. That's a good way of to prevent yourself from getting knocked out, is to keep that chin down. You're a much harder target. And Walker would find a spot in close and open up with both hands. His big punch was really a murderous left hook. And that was, when you have like a power weapon like that, that really helped him and was a serious equalizer in moving up and down, and he could really flatten guys with that, flatten welterweights as well as heavyweights.
When you look through his resume, I don't even have to say it. I mean, we know that he fought everybody. But what amazes me with that statement, and how many fights, we'll get to that later. He fought well over 150 fights, and all the names that are on his resume. Hall of Famers, great fighters of the era, all different weight classes. But what amazes me the most is this guy had absolutely no formal boxing training at all. When he turned pro, he pretty much was a fighter. That's it, And for him to accomplish what he did, I wonder if he just was that tough, if the fighters weren't as good, or if he became such a polished fighter. And I don't know if the word polish is good for Mickey Walker, but if he became so successful just from just being a tough guy, being in these fights as often as he was, or what?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I really think that it goes along, with the your poll question, comparing, Chavez and Pacquiao, is when you compare guys from the different eras, you can't help but wonder those kind of things, because especially a guy like this, Mickey Walker, we're talking 100 years ago. What we knew about nutrition and training was just very different. A couple of weeks ago, you had mentioned how, I think it was James Jeffries, they believed that in order to help him lose weight in training, keep your water intake down to a certain, you only drank like a cup of water a day.
Right.
Those kind of things were crazy and not good for you. So you wonder, what would this guy be like today? Was it just his genetics that he happened to find the thing that he was sent here to do? I think that that's something you got to wonder, especially in boxing, because it's when you come right down to it, it's something so basic. You know, two guys hitting each other in the head. It's something eternal. But when you factor in all the different modern day advantages, you know, in nutrition and training, you do have to wonder, you know, where would that leave a Mickey Walker? But I got to think that he would do pretty well because of the subtleties that you're right. I mean, that he would pick up, because the thing that's the big difference, they fought so many guys and they were so busy that they were never surprised in the ring, like the way James Kirkland was a couple of weeks ago. They fought so many different stylistic opponents that they had to learn a way to beat them if they were going to keep boxing. And Mickey Walker certainly did, and when you look at his record, it's amazing. I mean, guys like Dave Shade, Mike McTeague, Jack Britton, these are guys that, you know, more of the hardcore boxing fan would know that these are perennial top contenders. And he also had wins and did well against the mega names like the Harry Grebs, the Jack Sharkeys, those kind of guys. But yeah, this guy's his ledger is it doesn't get more. You don't get more street cred than reading Mickey Walker's ledger. That's for sure.
You know, I think some of the issues, and you know, I think you touched on something that it really has to be taken in consideration. Number one, the nutritional part, and yeah, that James Jeffries thing. He used to limit himself to 1 quart of water for the day. You know, during the workout and stuff. And his mentality was that made him tougher, you know. And I always said he's lucky he didn't drop dead from dehydration, you know. But anyway, you know, I just think that the fighters of yesteryear were tougher, you know. And I'm not disrespecting the fighters of today, but these guys were tougher. And even if you look at something like you know, the same old story is what we hear. Boxing came up from nothing. He was extremely poor, and he used boxing as a tool to get himself into a better life. Well, even taking that same story, which is used today, we hear it with you know, young fighters. You know, they were banned and they were this, they were that, and they became fighters. Being in poverty back in this guy's era meant you may not have any clothes on your back. You wouldn't have a pair of shoes. You may not eat for a week. You know, I don't know if that level of poverty, although I know it exists today, isn't as prominent as it was then. Today, a level of poverty might mean you don't have your own cell phone, you know, but you got $200 sneakers and stuff like that. So I think that toughness is not there, and that's important. The other thing you mentioned that I think is real important, and you used a great example of James Kirkland, is back then when you became a professional fighter, that was your trade. Your trade was a prize fighter. So in order to learn how to fight, you fought, and that's why they didn't concern themselves with losses, because you learn how to fight. Okay, we need practice against the southpaw. They would fight 10 fights against the southpaw. Short southpaws, big southpaws, southpaws that jab, southpaws that come at you, southpaws that you know, run away from you. All those different, you know, scenarios before they felt comfortable with a southpaw. Today, you get a young fighter coming up, they fight one southpaw, then they sit back and go, okay, now what's next? We got a southpaw under the belt. Now what do we go for? You know, and I just think that the trade aspect is missing.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the other thing you got to wonder about, and this is the thing that, unfortunately, when you're looking at films of this era, it's hard to really tell because the film itself, because of the quality, it might actually not be showing you real time because they might not have the film just might not have been capable of filming. Of catching the real speed of these guys' punches and stuff. And I think that's a big thing of somebody like Mickey Walker, who had not necessarily, you know, he's not like a Floyd Mayweather who has all these great strategic type moves that are based on, you know, sort of science. He was more pressure and tenacity and aggression and reflexes. I think that's one of the things that we kind of had a conversation about this once at Mohegan Sun about Rocky Marciano, and that even though Marciano had a crude style, when you compared him to greats, if he was going in there, him and, like, say, Evander Holyfield were facing off, I think we would be shocked at how good his reflexes are. And I think that would be the same kind of thing with a Mickey Walker, and some of that is because of the craft element, like you said. They've been in there with so many different guys. They know what to expect. They know it's almost like a good chess player. He's not just, even though he might be, worried about his aggression, and where to land on you, he can also see a few moves ahead, and that's what's missing today. Unfortunately, guys get a lot of their experience, and I think also a lot of the punishment fighters receive today happens in the gym, away from the eyes of the public, whereas back then, they'd fight, and they'd keep fighting. 2 weeks later, they'd be in the ring again. 3 weeks later, boom, they're in the ring again. And like you said, they'd be in there against a southpaw, then a crafty stylist, and then a puncher. So they got used to seeing everything that was out there.
Yeah, they became proficient in their trade of boxing, And Mickey Walker fought all these great guys. Jack Britton is one of the first names that always come up, because he was such a great fighter. And of course, you mentioned Mateague and all these other great fighters, Lou Tender. Even towards the end of his career, he was fighting guys like Maxie Rosenblum, and you also mentioned at heavyweight Max Schmeling and Bearcat Wright, which was a journeyman heavyweight as well, Johnny Risco. All these names, great names and everything else. But one of the greatest fighters of all time, Harry Greb, and Mickey Walker had a knockout, drag-out fight in the ring, and all these rumors, and I've read conflicting stories about it, all these rumors about them meeting up in a bar afterwards, being kind of buddies for a while, having a few beers together. And next thing you know, rumor has it that they were arguing about who won the fight, and they ended up in another fight out in the street. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's just such a great story. I think I remember last time we did Walker, I think some people in the chat room were saying that it might have been one of those tall tales of the ring, but there was a 1933 interview that Walker did with the L.A. Times, and he claimed that he had an early morning street brawl with Harry Greb. They had been out drinking and eating and dancing. I guess it started out with lobsters and drinking in the early evening, and they each had a girl with them. And as they went into the later hours of the night, they were dancing, and it got to the point where the girls left them. And it was just Harry and Mickey there drinking, and they finally stumbled out into the street in the wee hours of the dawn, and they squared up with each other and started boxing. And a cop, came down to try to break it up, brandishing his nightstick, and Walker had to say, "Hey, whoa, this is Mickey Walker and Harry Greb." And so the cop, let them go, and the two of them went back to their respective hotels, and I guess Walker said that then his phone rang, and it was Harry Greb. He still wouldn't let it go. They wanted to argue. He wanted to argue by phone about who won the street fight.
Yeah, I remember Bill Paxton talking about that. He covers that in his book, which incidentally you guys can get by visiting our website, www.billycboxing.com. Go in the book club section, and that'll take you right to where you can get a copy of Bill Paxton's book. And he's got that whole story in there, and it's a good one. Another thing that amazed me about Mickey Walker is this guy fought really for 20 years, from 1919 to 1935, and during that time, only one lapse, really, where he wasn't fighting consistently throughout the year, and that was between his last two fights. He had been stopped by Eric Seeling on December 2nd in 1935 and didn't get back in the ring until June 22nd in 1939 when he knocked out Red Bush, and he decided at that point that was the last fight of his career.
Yeah, he definitely had been in the ring for a long time, but I tell you, he never. It wasn't like he faded out. He did walk away, I think, at a decent a decent time. And in terms of, we do see the effects of, boxing in later life, but this was much later. He did contract Parkinson's disease, but it wasn't until 1974. And he actually lived all the way to 1981. So he lived to a ripe old age of 80 years old. Yeah. And actually, one thing that was sort of interesting about his personal life, he was married 6 times, but to only 4 different women. 2 women he remarried. He divorced and then remarried 2 of the 4 wives.
Wow, what idiot would do that? Me.
I've heard of one.
Yeah, I've heard of another idiot that did that, right? But anyway.
But yeah, in terms of just pound for pound greatness, and I mean, this is something for. I really hope that the people who vote in the polls and stuff on the website realize that when they hear these segments. And I don't think any of us want to say, we don't want to crush anybody's dreams. I mean, if you think of Manny Pacquiao as the greatest ever, or Floyd Mayweather as the greatest ever, fine. Go ahead and feel that way. The thing is, I would hope at some point you start doing your research and start realizing that, wait a minute, maybe there are other guys out there that were sensational. And when you think about pound for pound, Ibro has this guy ranked at 10th all-time welterweight, 4th all-time middleweight, and 16th all-time pound for pound. And Bert Sugar ranked him at 11th in terms of greatest all-time fighters. So, I mean, is Floyd Mayweather one of the best fighters of this era? Sure. But of all times, come on. You've got to do more research than that. You're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing the sport a disservice, walking around thinking that without reading about guys like Mickey Walker.
Well, I couldn't have said it better. I applaud you for that. And one last thing on Mickey Walker. An interesting fact, I mean, this was a guy that managed himself for most of his career, which, when you're considering that he had a total of 163 fights and had such a successful career, especially during an era when you needed certain connections to get fights. That's amazing. After boxing, he owned a bar. He was a salesman. He was actually regarded as a pretty damn good painter, and he also loved to play golf. He like so many fighters of today and sports heroes that we hear about. Just recently, former football player we just heard is in hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. In Warren Sapp, over $100 million in debt. Filed bankruptcy. This guy made a ton of money during his time. And like a lot of these athletes of today, he never stopped living the lush, playboy, I'm loaded life. And as a result of that, he virtually died penniless at 80 years old or whatever, however old he was. But, yeah, it's the same old story we hear all the time, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And in a way, I guess, it's better to well, I mean, I guess if you have children, you certainly want to leave them something. But, you can't take it with you, Billy C. So,
no.
Hey, it's
well,
nice to spend it all.
It's good because I've been following that rule. I know I can't take anything with me, but I don't have anything to take. And damn those kids, But anyway, Mickey Walker, former world welterweight champion. He's a boxing Hall of Famer. He was 5'7", had a 67-inch reach. 20 years as a pro. Amassed 1,249 rounds at a 37% knockout ratio. His record, pretty damn impressive. 94 wins, 60 coming by knockout. He lost 18 times, only stopped 5. He had 4 draws and a bunch of newspaper or no decision fights. 37 wins, 7 losses, and a draw. 163 total fights. When you say tough fighters, Mickey Walker definitely was one of those. Alex, great job as usual. We'll be looking forward. Hey, did you call me yesterday? Were you the guy I hung up on?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
But I am going to call you today.
Yeah, we got some stuff to talk about. And yesterday I was on this other phone, and I picked up, and I'm hearing somebody going in the background, Billy C, and I'm like, hello, and I'm like, who? I thought maybe it was you, but nobody ever called me back. So I don't know, maybe it was a figment of my imagination.
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, and we all know that my imagination can run crazy sometimes. But anyway, Alex, great job, and I'll talk to you later, my man.
Take care, Billy C.
All right, that's my main man, Alex Papali, doing the blast from the past, giving us some thoughts prior to that on Julio Cesar Chavez and Manny Pacquiao and all that stuff. Listen, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're scheduled to have the infamous Joe Santoliquito, all coming up in about 2.
The 2012 Summer Olympic Games unfold in 5 months in London. The honor and the history of playing host goes back a long way. How long? That's next on Sports Shorts with me, the Sports Princess.
This Your Family Today tip is brought to you by Stouffer's, helping bring your family together with wholesome dinner options, even on the busiest of nights. Find dinner table ideas to bring your family together at letsfixdinner.com. To get kids involved in dinnertime conversation, ask specific questions, not broad ones. Instead of what happened today at school, try what was the best thing that happened today. The more specific you are, the more they'll have to say. For more tips like these, visit us at parenthood.com/yourfamilytoday.
Legend has it that the Olympics go back to Hercules, but let's leave Greek mythology out of it. The modern games opened in 1896. Since Athens couldn't afford to put them on, a businessman ponied up the coin. Pole vaulting, weightlifting, shot put, and swimming, few of the handful of events. Since those days, some of the original sports remain. Others come and go, depending on the whims of the International Olympic Committee. Australia, France, Germany, and China have hosted summer games, and this will be the 3rd time for London. As for the winter games, the U.S. has hosted them 4 times since they started in 1924 in France, featuring sports like alpine cross-country skiing, figure skating, and such. Between the summer and the winter games, there are hundreds of sports and thousands of athletes. You never know what city is going to get a crack at hosting next. I'm the Sports Princess with Sports Shorts.
Talking Boxing with Billy C. Every week, 2 hours of the best boxing talk on the radio.
Mike Tyson looked like he put on some pounds. He was fat. He went into McDonald's and he just said to them, hey, give me 6 of everything on the menu. He put on 2 watches and covered 2 time zones. I'm talking fat here. Got on a scale the other day and it said, come on, one of you guys got to get off. Last thing I heard is that he jumped into the ocean and he left a ring around the continent. He's fat.
Boxing
with Billy C.
Now back to Talking Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Talking Boxing with Billy C.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, Talking Boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
And we're back. You are listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C radio show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel, and if you don't have Fight Now on your sports channel on it, now's the time to call your local television provider. For all the information about Fight Now, you can find it on their website, www.fightnow.com. Speaking of now, the infamous, and I do mean infamous, Joe Santoliquito joins us. What's up, Joe?
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. A couple of fights this weekend I wanted to ask you about. I want to get your thoughts on Vic Darchinyan. He lost last week. It wasn't that big of a fight that was publicized as much as maybe it should have been here in the States, but nonetheless, he had another shot at a bantamweight title. This was the WBC trinket against Shinuki Yamanaka, and came up short once again. What do you think, man? Is it just the size, or does Vic have to start thinking about the next phase in his life?
I think Vic has to start thinking about the next phase in his life.
He's really fallen back. Huh? It's almost like he's not throwing punches.
This guy, first off, he has the kind of style that doesn't exactly preserve a fighter. Say what you will about Bernard Hopkins, and there's quite a bit to say.
Yeah.
But Bernard does have the. I think Bernard uses the analogy, the peaches, the preserved peaches on the porch. Vic doesn't exactly. He's not exactly preserved his peaches there. He's been in some wars. He's been in a lot of wars, and it just, this is just another phase in his life that things caught up to him. I also think Vic's a little bit. Sometimes he could be a little bit delusional. I know. Was it Maris that beat him? And I think it was Donaire that knocked him out. And he's still been reeling from that knockout. I don't think he's ever recovered from that. And it's something there that, you get stuck in this mode, you get stuck in this thing that, you're looking to get back, looking to target a certain opponent, in this case, Donaire, where, you think sometimes you could slide your way back to the top. And I think Vic got caught up here. He got caught up, and I didn't see this fight. I don't think many did, as you said, many in the States. But it sounds like a case of he may not. I don't know what his training was like, but it sounds like a case of he may not have prepared the way he should have. And like I said, the other thing too is just he's been in some wars. I mean, the wear and tear on a fighter is like an NFL player. It's like a domino effect. You get banged up, and you're not going to be the same the next fight. And you get banged up even more, and again, you get knocked down another peg or two. That recovery process is brutal, and like I said, he just doesn't exactly have the kind of style that exactly preserves anything. I mean, he's entertaining, he's fun to watch, but again, in terms of longevity, a guy like him, going at it and performing, it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. Well, yeah, I'm going to turn around and go balls to the wind and fight my tail off, but again, what's going to happen to me in the long run? Well, we see what's happening to Victor Chinian.
Yeah. I think you hit on a point, that whole issue with Donaire had to really do with Gary Shaw. And, Victor Chinian was loyal to Gary Shaw. He always has been. And Gary refused to make that fight at that time.
Because Donaire left Shaw.
What's that?
Because Donaire left Shaw.
Right, exactly. He decided, and although he admitted that he would make the fight as recently as I think about a year and a half ago, at that point Donaire's way past that. He's out of that division. It's so they lost. And we've seen this a lot, Joe, where promoters they're rolling that dice, they're playing that craps game, and they crap out just before they hit the number they were shooting for. It's happened. It happens. And in Victor Chinian,
Manuel Lopez and
Gamboa. That's one of the
asking Bob Arum point blank in the Garden, when's this going to happen? And I remember him jumping and Bob Arum rarely makes mistakes, and all credit to Bob Arum, but this time he made a major blunder. I remember Arum jumping down my throat saying, "That's what you and your Golden Boy people want." I said, "No, I'm here for Ring Magazine, and that's what fight fans want. They want to see this fight." And it bit him in the ass.
Yeah, well,
bit him in the ass to turn around and try to build up one. How much more building can you do?
Well, the same thing could very well happen with the whole Pacquiao Mayweather thing. But one last comment on Victor Chinian. You make an interesting point about the wear and tear on him, and I think he's fighting like that and ripping a page from the preservative book of Bernard Hopkins. I think he is fighting a little like that. He's fighting with a little more caution. I think that the cuts, he sustained some serious cuts in all of his fights recently, and I think he fights to try to protect that from happening. And when you add
he's the kind of guy that walks in, he's bleeding walking to the ring.
Right. Well,
you just have to breathe on those cuts, and those babies open.
Well, his style gets the headbutts. Most of those cuts are headbutt related, So, he's fighting tentatively, and I'd hate to see him become just an opponent. I like him, and I love his killer instinct, and sometimes it just goes away. But let's talk about a couple of fights this weekend, and I got to be honest with you, man. I love Juan Manuel Marquez. There's no question about it. I love the guy. He's a class act, everything else. That card is just so weak, Joe. I mean, we're looking at Bam Rios against Richard Abril, right? I mean, that to me isn't even a competitive fight. You got Juan Manuel Marquez against Fenchenko. Okay, that's not a bad matchup because Juan Manuel Marquez has a tendency to only fight fantastic against Manny Pacquiao, and then he wins in other fights. So maybe that one's going to be better. But Alvarado and Herrera and Gesta and Cuevo, I mean, it just seems like a weak card for a pay-per-view. What do you think?
It's a horrendously weak card for a pay-per-view. I God bless you. I mean, you got people out there that are hardcore fans, but again, Bill, this goes back to something I've harped on many times on your air, nationally, on other stations, on how boxing has a way of continuously kicking its patrons in the teeth. And this is another example of that. Just turn around and just here. Why don't I just line up and I'll just lie on the floor, put my chin down, and just kick me in the effing teeth? Here's a remedy for that. Don't buy it.
Right.
Don't buy it.
Right.
Why care? Don't buy it. People like to see competitive. You might as well put Joe Schmo in there. You might as well get a guy close to Juan Manuel Marquez's size and just stick him in the ring and give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's always this idea of looking for some freaking angle, and it's a shame. Again, this is it's a top-ranked thing, and much credit to Bob Arum, because Bob Arum is the greatest promoter that ever promoted fights, in my opinion. But put something on that's at least going to generate something. Bill, as I'm talking to you now, and we're talking on Wednesday morning, what kind of chance do you think that's going to generate? Even, could I say maybe, you think that's going to get 25, 30,000 buys? Do you think they're going to get that many people to watch it?
I think they'll get that many, yeah, because
You do.
Only because Juan Manuel Marquez is a draw. I mean, he's a draw. Brandon Rios is a draw of some sorts, but the matchmaking here, it's too safe. It's too cherry picked, and we can blame because Arum and Top Rank, they're all blaming Gamboa for pulling out of this fight. But the truth of the matter is that he never signed a contract. That was only, according to Bob Arum, a verbal agreement. And nothing for nothing, but I don't think it was a good fight for Gamboa. I'm glad that he didn't fight that fight. I really am. I think there's better things for him in boxing. That does not mean to fight a guy that is going to be. This is his last. Bam Bam Rios. This is his last fight at lightweight. I mean, we all know that. He's not coming back at lightweight. So I think it's just another case of stuff blowing up in Bob Arum's face, and he's going on with it because he's so stubborn. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe 30,000 people buy it and that's it. And they call it a flop and they blame it on.
I don't even think so. I don't even think that. Your hardcore fight fan, and God bless them. They listen to your station. They listen to your shows, and they watch. But again, boxing needs to attract new customers. They need to turn around and get that younger 30 crowd, and to do that is to put on competitive fights. I mean, I'm going to mention something here that's going to put some chills up your spine, like I'm running down, nails running down a chalkboard. Is MMA and what they do, especially Dana White and UFC. It's just they are forced to fight competitive fights.
Well,
they have no other option. These guys have to go in and do something that's challenging. And again, it's an old refrain in boxing. I'm sure there's going to be a handful of people that I know that are hardcore fans that'll watch it and will buy it and invite me over Saturday night. I'm sure I'm going to have something else to do. The Phillies, I think, are hosting your Mets. I may go down and cover that. You got the NHL playoffs going on. The fight is competing against a number of other things, and I bring it up because, again, the business model that you're supposed to put out there and you're supposed to be supporting. Well, you know what? If it's trash, why support it? Why do I have to?
No,
why do I have to turn around and watch it?
I agree. There is another fight I'm interested in the fight. We're going to be showing it here on Fight Now, on the Fight Now TV channel. It's coming from Ireland, and it's Tyson Fury against Martin Rogan. Now, here's what I like about the fight.
You know what? That's a fun fight.
It's a fun fight. The word
it is a fun fight.
It is a fun fight.
Paid to watch
no,
it.
You don't have.
But it's a fun fight. If I had a chance to turn around, I'm channel hopping on a Friday night, I would put that fight on.
Well,
that is two guys that's two guys in a bar brawl. That's what that is.
It's a good one, and the thing is it's not on a pay-per-view. It's on the Fight Now channel. You got to have that. Your cable provider or satellite dish provider has to have the channel, but it's just like an ESPN channel on there. So it's not like you have to pay for it. They're showing that, plus they're showing the undercard of that terrible pay-per-view part. So at least maybe the undercard will be good on Fight Now. But the Tyson Fury Martin Rogan fight. Now Martin Rogan is a brawler. We all know that. He's literally a former cab driver, tough guy, won the prize fighter. And Tyson Fury, he's a big guy, and he's still learning. And because of the Irish factor, and because there's an Irish title on the line and all of that, I agree with you. I think the word "fun" is a great way to describe it. I think it's going to be an entertaining fight.
It's like the old Flintstones cartoons where they used to show Barney and Fred would go over and watch on Friday nights, and they have two big guys with clubs in their hands,
just hitting each other,
clubbing each other in the middle of the ring. That's what that is.
Right.
That's what that is. Tyson Fury and Martin Rogan are just two. Well, I'm going to be a bad man here. Two cavemen going at it. Two knuckle dragging cavemen just going at it, and I hate to say it, but it's the beauty of why we like this primal urge to watch people pummel each other. That's why you love to see home runs in baseball. That's why you love the big sluggers, and these guys are two guys that couldn't get out of a way of a punch if they helped if you know.
Well,
they couldn't help themselves from getting out of the way of a punch.
Well, Tyson Fury is interesting because of his size and everything, but his delivery of punches, he's been so used to fighting a smaller guy that, once he starts to step up, which he is now, I'm not saying Martin Rogan, but some other fighters, I think he's going to have some trouble. But, hey, one last thing I wanted to ask you. You never answered.
Who was the big, I saw him, and I was introduced to him, and he cut such a presence to me. I even forget his name, but I was introduced to him at the Cotto Mayweather press conference up in New York a couple months ago. Big Polish heavyweight.
Oh, Maurice Wach.
Okay.
And
okay.
He's working.
And he's introduced, and he's going to be the next great thing. And he comes over here, and he got his ass kicked, didn't he?
No. He's won over here. So far, he's won. He's with a new trainer now, but he's the guy that knocked out Kevin McBride. He just recently beat.
Am I confusing him with someone else? Because I believe there was a guy that lost. He lost.
Well, then it's not because he fought Ty Fields and knocked out Ty Fields, but then it's not a guy that is in the mix. Then it was probably that other young. Polish guy that I would never even begin to pronounce his name, and yes, he lost for the first time. He had only like 7 fights under his belt, and then
he looked like a beast too. I mean, he looked like you just don't want to cross this guy in a dark alley. And I laughed my ass off because people are they're struggling. They're looking for the the great North American hope in this case, with the Klitschko's dominating the heavyweight division. But I digress, Bill. Go ahead. You were going to bring up.
I wanted to ask you one more question. And by the way, when you get a chance, go up to BillyCBoxing.com. And speaking of Klitschko's, vote. We have a poll question I think you'll find interesting about them. But, we never touched on the Bam Bam Rios and Richard Abril fight. We did talk about the fact that Gamboa was supposed to fight Rios, and now Rios ends up with Richard Abril. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Brandon Rios. I some of his comments and things I'm not crazy about, but I like him. He's exciting. I usually wait. I can't wait to see him fight. But Richard Abril, with no disrespect to him, we're talking apples and oranges. We're talking totally a ladder's worth of separation between these two guys in terms of talent. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree. Hopefully he won't get seriously hurt. I mean, Brandon Rios is a dangerous person in and out of the ring. I've gotten to spend some time with him. We did the ring interview with him, where I spent a lot of time with him. He's a funny kid. I like to think if it wasn't for boxing, there might be another place he may be sometimes. I know he kind of regretted the comments he made in reference to Freddie Roach, but he's exactly what you say is. And I'll tell you what, he and Gamboa, oh geez, that would have been a fantastic fight. That would have been an absolute war. That should have been the main event on this card, instead of trying to keep Marquez somehow, some way active by throwing him a schmo. I love Brandon Rios. I love his style. Again, he's the kind of guy that people love to see. He certainly doesn't fall under the Craftsman's definition with Floyd Mayweather, but he does a lot of good things. And again, it's just the pressure, fun, I'm going to knock you the F out style that people love to see, people want to see. And again, it's a shame. I mean, it's just very one-sided. I mean, it's not Tyson Fury and Martin Rogan in the sense that Rogan's got to fight back. This guy's got to get pummeled. I mean, I don't think he really has a prayer against Brandon Rios. So,
No.
But real quick here, when I have a chance to, I'm trying to delve more into this, and I'm actually looking forward to it. I think it's a big push for boxing. Is Jim Lampley is going to host, I think, the first of 4 shows next month on HBO. Basically, kind of an informative, type of boxing show where it talks about fighters coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. The only thing I in the back of my mind that I fear is that I just hope they're not talking about quote unquote HBO fighters.
Of course they are.
Just HBO fights.
Of course they are. What do you think, man? Those guys. That's the only knock. That's what's become with all of boxing. Even the promoters, the top level promoters. It's all focused around their own guys, and that's where I think a lot of people are missing the boat. They're not being informed the right way. We got to wait for it to happen, but I would bet donuts to dollars, or whatever that saying is, dollars to donuts.
Dollar to donuts.
Yeah, listen, I could dig up a donut, but probably not a dollar. But the bottom line is, I don't think that they should do a show showcasing their own fighters. If he's talking about other fighters, fine. But I've seen him.
It's supposed to be a boxing. I don't know the specifics yet, but it's supposed to be a quote unquote a boxing type show. I will evoke a certain name that I'm not a fan of. Is when Brian Kenny used to do the studio segment with Max Kellerman on Friday Night Fights, and that's going way back because it's probably one of the last times I've seen Friday Night Fights. But I liked that studio segment because it was informative. It didn't matter.
It was old
Showtime
news.
Fight, an HBO fight, didn't matter. It was just in reference to the fighters and fights coming up, and obviously I think the last time he even was channel hopping and sneak peeked one of their studio segments, it was just god awful, pretty much like the fights they put on. But when they had that with Max and with Brian, that was. First off, the two of them had an amazing chemistry with one another. But when they had that there was something. They're giving you something. They're providing you something there that other sports, all other sports, have on that network. Your NFL show, your Baseball Tonight show. They had those type of things, and they were giving boxing its due respect with those shows, and hopefully. That's kind of what this is going to be. Lampley's one of the best in the game, if not the best, blow-by-blow guy in the game. He's informative. He knows the score. He knows everything that's going on. You have a guy there, I think, an incredible, valuable resource in Harold Letterman. I know Harold may have an annoying I twitched down a voice. But you would see Harold, and I've seen Harold over here. I'm at a club show in Philly down here. There's Harold. You see Harold, at your mid-level type shows in New York and New York City, at the Garden or some stuff that the Bella may hold on a Thursday night. You see Harold there. He's everywhere, and he's a boxing sponge. He sees all these guys. He sees all these guys coming up. He's an incredible resource that I hope they use. And the same thing with Larry Merchant. Larry Merchant's he's one of the last true columnists. Larry, when I first got into the game, was an acquired taste. And getting not only to know Larry personally, he's a better person than he is a boxing commentator. And that's saying a lot because I think Larry's a tremendous boxing commentator. But he brings a columnist's perspective, to the sport, and I hope they use those resources there. But Lampley's the best. We'll see what it turns into.
Yeah.
It's coming up sometime in May, and as it gets closer, maybe we'll talk a little bit more and more about it. But it's something there again that's good, only in the sense that it promotes the sport. And I'm on the same page as you are, Bill. I always like to say, boxing is a family, how dysfunctional a family it is, and it's very dysfunctional, where you have only the brothers and sisters thinking about themselves in their own little worlds, in their own little rooms, and don't think about the sport's overall well-being, and that's obviously what's always hurt the sport, and what's hurting the sport even more now, where only one promoter's only going to put his fighter in against other fighters that he promotes, and get, as opposed to putting these guys in, letting these guys fight the fights that they should fight. Even though I'll say this too, as May 5th comes up, and we'll talk more and more about our friend Mayweather, I'm going to give Floyd a lot of points for this.
Yeah, well, we got
because
plenty.
He did step up and fight Cotto, and that is, again, that's good. It's good for boxing, and it's good for it's good in the sense for Floyd. Floyd's going to chop him up, and we'll talk more and more in detail about that.
No,
but the fact of the matter is, let's give points where it's due, Bill. I mean, it's good for boxing. It's good for the sport. He went to Cotto. It's not at a catch weight. He turned around, and still he's fighting a dangerous guy that's capable. I'm not going to say he's going to beat him, but he's capable of beating Mayweather. And I'm going to give Floyd points for that. That doesn't always. It's not always the case. I mean, we see it again with Marquez this weekend and with Brandon Reyes.
No, I hear you. But yeah, we'll talk more about that as time comes. But speaking of time,
but hang on though, you got to agree with that.
Well,
you gotta
I agree, and I've said that a million times. I am giving him credit for that fight, and I'm looking forward to it. And I don't think it's a layup as many people think. But hold that thought. We'll get to that again next time. I gotta end the show here, Joe. I'm sitting here rambling on with you, and we got to wrap it up. So I'll talk to you next week. Keep up the good work, my man.
Real quick here. Do your Mets get swept, or does reality come in and they start losing the way they should?
Hey, 4-1. I'm happy with 4-1. Let's just do that. It put a little excitement for the first week. That's all I'm going to say.
And then reality catches up, though.
It did last night. But we'll see.
The beginning of the end, my friend.
Well, I used your line. The season's over.
Okay, Bill.
But I'll talk to you later. All right, ciao. That's Joe Santoliquito, the infamous Joe Santoliquito, and filling us in. I didn't hear anything about that HBO show with Jim Lampley, but I got to disagree with my man Joe. I'm not a big fan of Lampley. I don't think he knows as much as people think. I've heard him blunder a lot of times. Unless they got the teleprompter and they're talking only HBO. But come on, tune into Fight Now. Watch our show. You'll get everything. Those studio shows that I listen to on Friday nights when they give a summary of what's going on. It's all old news. It's stuff we talked about 3 days before. So whatever. Anyway, quick note, Gary Russell, featherweight Gary Russell, the next big thing. We're all excited to see him. Well, guess what? We're not going to be seeing him this year yet. He was scheduled to fight April 21st on Showtime, and it ain't happening. He twisted his ankle. He didn't break it. It's not broken, but he can't walk on it for the next 3 weeks. So he had to be postponed. He will be fighting but stay tuned for the date. But it will not be on the scheduled Showbox card, which was scheduled for April 21st. He was on that, and he's not. Just a word of program note. Next week, we got a couple of great guests coming on. World champions, former world champions, Corey Spinks and also Billy the Kid O'Run, both scheduled to join us next week. But speaking about scheduled...
Wake up. It's time for the... It's too early for a trivia question.
Before I ask this question, I just want Murphy to know that the next trivia question will not be in sequence. That's all I'm saying. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question is being brought to us by Star Boxing and their May 18th event at the Albany Times Union. If you're looking to get tickets for that, visit our website, www.billycboxing.com. And on the line is the Holyfield Way. It's a great book given to us to give to you by prizefightingbooks.com. Check them out. Tell them Billy C. sent you. The Holyfield Way is actually my favorite book on Evander Holyfield. We have a couple more of these left, so we're going to be giving some books away for the people that can get our daily trivia question correct. And today's question is, who won the most fights from 1930 through 1939? Who won the most fights from 1930 through 1939? If you know that answer, email me, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Who won the most fights from 1930 to 1939? It's a lot of them.
This day in boxing history.
And finally, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by Campanaro and Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep me out of trouble, and that is Campanaro and Tomkovich. Give them a call, 845-221-4099. That's 845-221-4099. Tell them Billy C. sent you, and tell them I said I'll pick up the consultation fee. On this day, April 11th, 1974, Ishimatsu Suzuki knocks out Rodolfo Gonzalez in the 9th round to win the WBC World Lightweight title, and that took place on this day, April 11th, in 1974, in Tokyo. Don't forget to go up to the website and vote. We have a new poll question up there. I think you're going to like it, www.billycboxing.com. But the other thing you got to remember, you know what it is? 1, 2, 3. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. There's only one channel, the Fight Now channel. Call your local television provider right now and tell them you want the Fight Now channel added to your sports channel lineup. It's that simple. For all the information about Fight Now, you can find it at their website, www.fightnow.com. See you all tomorrow. Ciao, baby.